companies can't say goodbye to manufacturing in China. As I mentioned in the beginning of today's video, the West is starting to recognize the superior technology coming from China, and many American companies are left with an interesting question to answer. Should we attempt to compete with China and overtake their technology at a significant cost, or do we cede the market to the Chinese and simply become their customers? This is the exact dilemma that Jim Farley, CEO of Ford Motor Company, is facing. Throughout 2024, Mr. Farley spent a significant amount of time in China and came back to the US realizing that legacy car makers face an existential threat in China. China is simply too far ahead in the EV industry that Western automakers literally have no chance to compete with China. Ford has predicted they will lose $5 billion on its electric vehicle operations, and remember, that's in spite of high tariffs that block Chinese EVs from entering the American market. Ford has now decided its best option is to pivot strategies and take subsidies from the US government to make batteries in Michigan. But here's the catch. Ford will license the battery technology from China's CATL, the world's largest maker of EV batteries, once again proving that without China, Ford would not have a future in the EV industry. But now let's take a look at Apple's business in China and reveal just how important China is to one of America's most valuable brands. Earlier this year, Nikkei Asia reported that Apple is moving closer to China despite supply chain shifts. Once again, there is a stark difference between what US politicians preach and what pragmatic business leaders are doing in China. Apple is increasing its use of parts from both Chinese suppliers and manufacturing sites, while using fewer suppliers from Taiwan, the United States, Japan, and South Korea. Despite political tensions between the US and China, the 21st century belongs to Asia, and smart American companies will embrace this shift to the east. Apple announced earlier this year it was expanding a research center in Shanghai and opening a new tech lab in Shenzhen. But if the domination in resources, technology, and talent isn't enough, the infrastructure used to facilitate this manufacturing and transport it around the world is second to none. From fully automated ports to the most extensive high-speed rail network, China has spent decades building up a world-class network of infrastructure that simply no other nation can compete with. In addition, let's not forget the over 150 countries who have joined China's Belt and Road Initiative. Altogether, China has built the world's largest and most extensive trading network that further cements its status as the world's factory and ensures that not only are products going to continue to be made in China, but they will be seamlessly transported and distributed efficiently throughout the globe. As you can see, the cards are stacked pretty heavily against America. Instead of adopting some of China's industrial policies to catch up or allowing American consumers to benefit from affordable, high-quality Chinese products, our politicians have made the worst decision possible. Trump decided to use tariffs as his main tool to address the trade deficit during his first term, which was then carried over and expanded during the Biden administration. We have almost 8 years of data to show that tariffs do not work in their reported purpose of relocating factories back to the United States. Instead, the additional costs from tariffs are passed on to the consumer, making everyday Americans, and certainly not China, the biggest loser. If you find this hard to believe, simply listen to the wise words of billionaire investor Mark Cuban, who explains why tariffs always fail. The majority of American consumers will not pay up for American-made products. If they would, all of this would be moot. Companies would have an incentive to build here, even if it costs more. The second is companies, by default, are patriotic and want to build here. If they could build cheaper here, they already would be doing so. To be honest, this is such a simple concept to understand. In order for manufacturing to come back to the United States, one of two things need to happen. Number one, the cost of manufacturing has to be reduced. Or number two, the price buyers are willing to pay has to go up. It is as simple as that. This is not complex, but it's amazing how so many US politicians don't understand basic economics. Consumers will always prefer the lowest cost option of a product, regardless of where it comes from. This just goes to show that these tariffs are unserious and politically motivated. I'll share with you one final case study that illustrates this point so clearly. In 2008, the United States was the powerhouse manufacturer of solar panels, controlling over 45% of market share. But fast forward 16 years, and US manufacturing is barely visible on this graph. China has transformed the industry with superior manufacturing and now dominates the future of solar energy. This is an important lesson for all Americans to learn. It wasn't so long ago that we could compete at mass producing critical technologies like solar panels, but with the wrong government policies in place, the number one position can change in just a few short years. At the end of the day, the idea that America can easily decouple from China just doesn't hold up against the reality of the global manufacturing landscape. China's dominance in green energy, rare earth minerals, engineering talent, and infrastructure is simply unmatched. For America to bring manufacturing back, it would need massive investments in workforce development, infrastructure, and supply chain. But instead, we're doubling down on tariffs, which, as we've seen, will only add costs for the American consumers while leaving China's grip on global manufacturing largely untouched. Unless the US makes serious changes to its industrial policies and priorities, the Made in America dream might just stay that, a dream. Instead of hoping tariffs or political pressure will somehow change the fundamental economic advantages that China holds, it's time for America to rethink its approach and focus on building a competitive edge where it really matters. Everyone, thank you for making it to this point of the video. And if you want to see a behind the scenes tour of an actual factory in China and see where China's competitive advantage truly is, I want you to click here to watch my video tour of a Chinese textile factory. This is one of my top 10 all-time most popular videos on YouTube, and it's an incredible story that I don't want you to miss. Thank you all for your support, and I'll see you soon in our next video.